To kick us off is Dr. Liad Weiss, who is an assistant professor of marketing here at UW-Madison School of Business. He's going to open this first session and talk about how owning products affect the way we perceive those objects and ourselves. And I enjoyed reading a little bit about what he analogized here. He's going to go into the behavior of how what we own and how we perceive that can maybe even make someone short like me feel a little taller. So I was really happy to hear about that. The session will continue with a series of talks, panel presentations, and then we'll do a Q&A with the audience. Dr. Weiss, thank you so much for being here.
All right. Okay, that would be great. Awesome. So hello everyone. I'm really happy and excited to be here and share my research with you. My name is Liad Weiss and I come from the business school. In the business school I'm in the marketing department, and my research quite generally is about consumer psychology, how consumers make decisions, and specifically about ownership. So my talk would not be directly about sustainability, but I'll talk more about the psychology of ownership and how we see objects and how we see possessions. And later I may try to suggest some implication for sustainability, and maybe we can take it, to the next level later in the panel discussion. So as I said, my research looks at ownership. Oh, I don't have a lot of rope here. So my research looks at ownership, and ownership is obviously a very important part of being a consumer, right? We accumulate a lot of stuff all the time in any number of ways. So we buy stuff. Today we can do it, these days we can do it in one click. We can delay payment, and we can even return it if we feel we don't like it. And we also receive stuff, right? So we get hand-me-downs and gifts from family and friends, and we get sign-up gifts and rewards from marketers. Even better. But the thing is that so in my research I try to look at some of the unidentified and unintended implication of owning things. And to start looking at these implications, me and my colleagues have developed this theoretical framework, which I'll discuss shortly. And using that framework, we try to address questions such as how simply owning a product affects the way you judge the product, the way you judge yourself and behave, and the way or the type of attributes that you care about in product choice. Okay, and today I will focus on the second paper here, the way we judge yourself and behave following ownership. And just to start us off with an example, let's look at this following situation. So let's say that recently I've been deliberating. So I wanted to get more into understanding alcohol, and I wasn't sure whether to go with a more sophisticated wine club tasting, or a more less sophisticated, maybe more rugged beer tasting club. All right. So what we know now, something that you don't know about me is that I spent about 6 years in New York. I got my PhD there, and so I feel very much like a New Yorker in many ways. And so let's say in one of my visits to New York, I see in the subway this very sophisticated, elegant guy, and this is, I'm thinking, should I go with the beer club or with the sophisticated wine club? And so one of two things can happen. This is what previous research say. So I may feel, because I have some affinity to New York, I may feel that, me and that guy are in some sense are the same, right? Both of us New Yorkers. So I would feel more sophisticated and then would go with the wine option. However, I may also, realize, after all, I'm a Wisconsinite. I left New York. It's no longer me. I don't feel affiliation with that guy, and as a result, I may actually prefer to feel less sophisticated and go with the beer option. All right? Now, what we suggest, so that's previous research. What we ask is whether this sort of comparison or this sort of assessment could happen also with products as opposed to with people. So let's say instead of thinking of this sophisticated individual, we think of this sophisticated Mont Blanc pen. All right? What we suggest and what we predict is that if I feel that I own, or I actually own, say I received this pen as a gift, then I may feel now more sophisticated. Right? I now own this sophisticated pen, and I feel in a sense kind of affiliated with it. And some of its characteristics would transfer to me, to how I see myself, and this could lead me to go with the wine option. However, if I say just see an ad for that pen, but I don't own it, and I realize no, it's a very sophisticated pen, but I don't own it. So compared to this high standard of sophistication, I actually don't feel very sophisticated. And in that case, I may actually go with the beer option. All right? So this is kind of the setup. And so what we suggest is that in order to make these predictions, we need to slightly change how we think about ownership. Okay? Previous research thought about ownership as more of affective, when I emotionally get attached to things, or things that I own are better. But we suggest that people use use ownership as information to organize and understand their surrounding material environment. Things that I own are part of me. Things that I don't own are external to myself. Okay? And what excites us about this idea, this is kind of a simplistic version, but what excites us is that it allows us to make predictions that cannot otherwise be made. And today I'll try to convince you, I'll show you two studies of a bunch of studies that we ran to try to see whether this is actually the case, where we can get, where there is some evidence that that products can affect the way we see ourselves this way. And just because I know it's a very heterogeneous crowd here, and by the way, I don't have the time here, I don't see time anywhere, so could you let me know like 5 minutes and 2 minutes before? Thank you. So I'll give you a brief introduction of the type of methodologies that we use to test these studies. So we ran basically experiments. So we would bring students to the lab, and then would have one group would be in one condition, basically receive one sort of situation. Say in my case, they will be owners. We'll assign them to own a product. The other group would be in a different condition, so we will assign them to interact with the product, but not to own it. Okay, and then we'll ask them the same question, and we'll see, or we'll give them an opportunity to behave in a certain way, to make a choice, and we'll see how this factor affected their behavior or evaluation. So that's kind of the general methodology, and I'll show you two studies along these lines. Okay, so so the first study will kind of show the basic pattern, and the second study will go to more deeply into the why it happens. All right. So in the first study, we wanted to start with a physical characteristic. Okay, and I actually have a prop, two props actually. You see these right here? You can pass them around. One. And so, oh, you have yours. So basically, these two traveling mugs are both 16 ounce. They're both black, as you can see. The only difference between them is how tall they are. Right? One is taller and the other is shorter. And so half of the students were randomly assigned to receive the shorter mugs, and the other half received the taller mugs. Okay, and by receive I mean they came to the lab for a marketing study to come and evaluate the product, assess the product. All right? And then within each group, half of them were randomly assigned to own the mug that they evaluated. They were told, this is yours, you can take it home with you when you're done. And the other half just evaluated the mug, just did the same task, and they told at the end of the experiment, you receive a different mug instead. So both of them will end up having a mug, but the group that would have the other mug later did not own the mug that they assessed. Right? And basically, so we manipulate the physical shape, the height, by just giving them a different mug, manipulate the ownership, and then what we did is we measured how they perceive across. There were among different questions about the mug itself, how it looked, how it opened, how heavy it is, and so on. And then we asked them about themselves, and then we asked how do you feel about your physical tallness right now, on 1 to 7, very short versus very tall. And we also asked them kind of general self-assessment, self-esteem, to what extent you perceive yourself positive, fighting. Okay, good. And again, the prediction was that when people are assigned to own the mug, if they are assigned to the taller mug condition, they would also feel taller. And as a result, would also have higher self-esteem in terms of how they perceive themselves visually. However, if they are assigned not to own the mug, now the tallness of the mug will serve as a standard of reference. So this is a tall mug. Compared to this tall mug, I don't feel as tall. So I should perceive myself as actually shorter. Okay? Okay, and this is the result that we got, and let me walk you through that. So you see the two mugs, the tall and the short. On the left side is how tall they assess themselves to be. And so the blue line is the case where they were assigned to own the product. Okay, when they were assigned to own the product, when the product was the taller mug, they perceived themselves as taller. That's the blue line. Okay? However, if they were assigned not to own the mug, they just assessed it without ownership, when they had the taller mug, they perceived themselves as shorter. Okay, now this is not a huge effect, as you'd expected. It's not like, blow you out of the field kind of thing, but it was enough to affect on the overall self-esteem of their appearance. People who ended up feeling taller also rated their self-esteem on their appearance as higher. 2 minutes. Okay, so I won't get into the details of this study. I'll just tell you about it. In the second study, we looked at more of a brand characteristic. So brand characteristic could be to what extent the product is sincere or insincere, and we use headphones. And so in one case, you see to the left, it's headphones that were consumers, the same set of headphones, but consumers were told, the participants were told that these headphones improve sound artificially. So they're not very sincere. And the one on the right, the participants were told, the same headphone, but participants were told that the headphones reproduce sound very authentically, just like it was reproduced in the studio. Okay? And then participants were assigned either to own or not to own these headphones, and then they received an opportunity to cheat later, to act authentically or inauthentically. And basically, we got the same pattern. Okay, people were more likely to cheat when they were assigned to own the insincere headphones, but were less likely to cheat when they are assigned to own the insincere headphones. Now let me briefly summarize. I know that it would take, I would would be better to explain it in more details, but just to be respectful of the time, I'll briefly summarize. So ownership helps us to understand ourselves inside of our surrounding material environment. Things that we own are part of us. Things that we don't own are external to myself. But there is one caveat, or at least one. So when you own products, you indeed get control over them, but in a sense you also give them some control over you, in the sense that it changes how you perceive, it may change how you perceive yourself and behave. And so there are other implications that I thought I could talk about, but I won't get into them. Just two thoughts about how this could apply to sustainability. So one thing is that we should be cognizant of this unintended effect of object on how we see ourselves, and we should inform consumers about that. And in that sense, we need to be more selective in terms of what we accept and what we buy, because that has have a big impact could have a big impact on ourselves. The second thing is you can use, if you cannot beat them, join them. So you can think of transformative gifts. You want to make a person a greener person, so give them the gift of a product that is more sustainable, and they may perceive themselves as more sustainable and act that way. And that could be on any number of dimensions. So thank you very much. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.